two witnesses to it, but I'll tell you the story. We don't know whether it's true. There's a woman called Eleanor Berry who has she's the daughter of the rich man who owns the Telegraph Group of newspapers, the Berrys. Her name's Eleanor Berry, and she's eccentric. At one point, she's got mental health problems. At one point, Robert Maxwell saves her from electroconvulsive shock therapy, right? So she's not a reliable witness, but somebody I know, former editor of Private Eye, Richard Ingram's, believes that this story may well be true. He's inclined to believe it's true. What she says is that she was once shown on a table in the big fancy house that Maxwell had in Oxford, Headington Hill Hall, a series of implements with which Robert Maxwell used to beat his daughter Ghislaine. And Ghislaine tells Eleanor Berry, according to Eleanor Berry, that Daddy was nice to me because he would allow me to select which one to be beaten with. At that point, Ghislaine is 9. Now, I don't know whether that story is true. I'm not saying it's true. It's a story told in her book by Eleanor Berry, and she, as I said, is an eccentric woman and may not be reliable.
1 second. She also tells it on YouTube. The video is out there if people want to watch it in Elena's own words. And I was going to ask you if you thought that perhaps, if it is true, subconsciously that may have laid down some kind of sadomasochistic streak in Ghislaine.
With Kristen's help, we've built our platform to not just respond to customer needs, but anticipate them. Mm-hmm.
Eleanor Berry also talks about Betty Maxwell giving her a book of Marquis de Sade, and 2 more pieces of information. In 2002, Vicky, I'm trying to remember the name of the British reporter who worked for Vanity Fair. I've forgotten her name. Anyway, the reporter working for Vanity Fair interviews Epstein in Manhattan, and there's only one book in the Manhattan house on show, and it's Marquis de Sade. And when the Palm Beach Police Department raided Epstein's house in Palm Beach, they find an Amazon receipt for 3 books about sadomasochism. So what you've got there is some evidence. The first piece of evidence is more difficult to assess. I don't know what happened because I wasn't there, but it's clear that Epstein was into sadomasochism, and this evidence from Eleanor Berry points to Ghislaine being there. Now, there's a difference in that none of the women, these young girls who were sexed by Epstein, talk about physical sadism. But there is a kind of psychological sadism in what happens to them. They didn't know that they were going to be, or the ones I've spoken to, didn't know that they were going to end up giving massages. They didn't know that. And then there's another piece of detail from the Vanity Fair writer. When you went into his house in Manhattan, the hall was decorated with glass eyes made for British Tommies, British soldiers in the First World War who'd been blinded, and they'd obviously overproduced these awful things, and so this wall was covered with this stuff as you come into the house. And that's creepy with a capital C, Sean. Yeah. And I think anybody who can imagine the suffering of that generation, the First World War, that be blinded, for that to be a kind of talking point in your house as you come in, to me, that's about sadism. It's about frightening people and creeping them out and enjoying it and savouring it.
Oh, we're enjoying the podcast. It's a word from our sponsor, Shopify.